All right, yeah. Then let's start. So today we're gonna have an informal and relaxed discussions with Professor Paul Rabinowitz, and in the audience is Dallas, Alberton, and me. So I'll just introduce very briefly Paul, and then we dive right into the discussions. So Paul Rabinowitz is the Van Vleck Professor, Schauder Professor, and Vilas Research Professor, Mathematics at UW-Madison. He got his PhD at NYU in 1966 under the direction of Moser, and from 66 to 69 he was assistant professor at Stanford University, and then he came to UW.
First, I was an instructor.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and as a first instructor, and then he stayed at UW for 40 years, right, from 1969 to 2009. And of course, Paul has proved and many important results. If I just need to name two, then his global bifurcation theorem and mountain pass theorem. The first was done in part with Crandall, and the second was done with Ambrosetti. Right? And Paul is currently in the U.S. National Academy of Science and has received a lot of prizes and awards, including the Birkhoff Prize and the Schauder Medal. So it's great to have you here. Do you have any quick thoughts, anything you want to share first with us before we dive in?
No, just go ahead.
Sure. Yeah.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so very quick thing first, right? So do you have anything to share quickly about the general landscape of UW during your UW mathematics during your 4 decades?
Well, of course, it's changed a lot. The university has changed a lot. The department has changed a lot. The composition of areas has changed a lot, which is to be expected.
So one thing I'm wondering about is, so when you first came, how were, when you first came, do you think of yourself as a PDE? I mean, do you think I do PDE or I'm a dynamicist or just something in between maybe?
Well, when I came, there really wasn't a PDE group. So the first PDE person I know of was Kenan Smith, who was had been a student of Elsie Young.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure about his history here. He'd been here for a while. He went elsewhere, and he came back, and then occurred the bombing next door, and then he left again. But also before me, at least a couple of years before, was Bob Turner. So Bob was a student of Friedrichs, and so you could definitely call him a PDE person. Whether there were people who worked in PDE in the earlier days, that I don't know.
So, for example, you mentioned Young. He's surely, if people don't know, he's famous for the Young measures, right? Did you interact with him when you first came?
No, he was already retired when I came.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe he just retired, but he was retired.
I see.
There was an age limit in those days, and perhaps 70. Wisconsin was a little more enlightened than many other places, and they had a higher age limit. Might have been 70, and he had to retire at that age.
I see.
Yeah. So when you came here, Conley was already here, right?
Conley was already here.
Okay.
Yes.
And you two had a lot. I mean, he was also a student of Moser, and you two had
Yes.
a lot of interaction.
Yes. Yes. So he had come. I had met him at NYU. He was actually a student of Moser's at MIT. Moser had been there for a few years before he went to NYU, and he was a postdoc at NYU when I first arrived.
Oh, okay.
So I met him there. Bob Turner was a classmate of mine at NYU, as was Wayne Dickey, who was an applied mathematician here, but doing elasticity, PDE, applied PDE. There were applied people who were doing PDE in that sense here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And how were PDE and analysis viewed by the department? Do you think, or by your college? Was it valued, or just?
Let's see. Well, Rudin was in effect the leader of the analysis group, Walter Rudin, and I would say he was one of the leaders in the department, one of the more well-known people in the department. So I think there was respect for it.
Okay.
great. So, because you started mentioning about PDE, so let's dive in. So, as you said, right? I mean, PDE. When was it officially becoming a caucus at UW? I mean, not precisely the time, but
When I came, there was a sizable presence in ordinary differential equations. There were 5 or 6 people. I think 3 or 4 were former students of Norman Levinson. John Noel, Jake Levin, Fred Brower, Howard Connor. There was Dave Russell in control theory. So there was a sizable group there. That subject has totally disappeared. In Madison, it's morphed in some sense to symplectic geometry, the subject itself. So you don't find a lot of people working in classical ODE.
I mean, in a sense, our caucus, right? I mean, that is still being called differential equation caucus.
It was part of, so PD was part of the differential equations caucus.
Right.
Originally, once the caucus system evolved.
So you mentioned that direction is kind of totally disappear, right? How about, I mean, what are the changes you see in the sort of people doing PDE in the 4 decades?
Well, in the 50s, 60s, say 70s, a lot of work in linear theory. So linear, elliptic, and parabolic PDEs were the object of workers throughout the world. And that subject, well, you can't say it's completed, but basic theory was well developed by the 70s. And then there was more of a movement towards nonlinear. And even that, so there was a long period of, say, of nonlinear, quasi-linear elliptic PDEs, and that sort of has died down. There's more of a movement now towards PDE intersect other areas. So applied math, math biology, I mean, pretty much anything.
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of the PDEs I see now, I agree with that.
That's where the action is.
Yeah.
You
And
want-
we should circle back to that. So I will say that last night I reached out to Tariq Al-Gindi to say, hey, we're interviewing, Professor Rabinowitz tomorrow. Okay, anyways, I think I said we're interviewing all. But he always calls you Professor Rabinowitz.
And he's very
Yeah.
respectful.
He is, yes, he is, yeah. And so, and he said two things we should touch on are the Army Math Research Center and also about this thing about kind of the styles of PD, how the style of doing PD has changed in terms of building theory versus solving problems. But I think we should circle back to that.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great to talk about kind of whether there are different eras in PDEs at Madison. One of those eras being, when the Army Research Center was active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when we always refer to it as the MRC,
The MRC.
the
Math
Math
Research
Research Center. The name Army was suppressed.
Exactly. I tell you.
Uh, There's a little book about it, by the way. I don't know if you know
I
of
read
it.
it.
Oh, you read it?
100 page. You
Yeah.
told me and I read it.
It was written by Jag Chandra, who was the Army representative of math, sort of, at that point, and Steve Robinson, who was in ComSci here. So the history of it, and it's interesting to read. So that strongly affected PDE because the MRC had a mandate to do research in certain areas. One of them being applied math, another being computational math, statistics, and differential equations. So because of that, there were always strong ties between some members of the department and the MRC. And since MRC regularly had people coming, especially short-term, people might come for a year or two, and they would often be joint with math, there were some frictions within the department as to the preference that those areas might have. So that led to some tensions.
So did the MRC, was it mostly sort of permanent researchers, or was it a few permanent and people come?
There was a core of permanent people. So there in the computational areas, there was Ben Noble, who was director for a while, and he was also a member of the math department, and Carl de Boer, who was partly a member of the math department, also in ComSci. There was Mike Crandall, whose appointment was joint between math and MRC.
Okay.
And people like myself were not infrequently partially supported by the MRC.
So if you just do a trivial Google search about MRC, all you get is bombing stuff, and I don't really, I don't want to make this focus about bombing, but the bombing happened 1 year after you came, right? Because you came in '69 and it was in '70.
Yeah.
And then what was the MRC like after that? It still existed, right?
It still existed and it functioned well. It moved to the Wharf building.
Okay. It's a little ways away.
Not that far. Remember, there's bus service.
Oh, sure.
And well, there were people who would just walk it. Say it's a 15-minute walk.
Yeah. But it's not as close as Sterling.
It's not as close as Sterling. So I barely knew it in its Sterling days,
Right.
Because of the timing, and I was totally accustomed to walking back and forth there. It was a major influence to PDE because the interest in PDE led to many more PDE people visiting the university, both longer term, say for a year, and short term. And so this made us a real center in nonlinear PDE. So we had very good ties with, say, the French school, and regularly had young people in PDE.
Do any particular visits come to mind? You mentioned the French school. Any particular members of the French school who?
Well, Brazis came frequently. Tamam. Luc Tartar spent the year here, for example. That was unusual in that younger guys would generally just come for shorter periods. He spent a whole year.
Yes, Luc Tartar, the younger guy.
And also,
Younger Luke.
Yeah.
also Leon's also came, right?
Leons had been here, both Leons,
Right.
the father and son. Mike Crandall worked with the younger Leons, and the father was good friends with some people here, like John Noel and Seymour Parter.
So I want to touch base also on this, like so the like Crandall and the Leon's, Pierre-Louis Leon, they proved the well-posedness of viscosity solution here, right?
Yes.
And how about the Dipena-Leon's theory? Was it done here or was it done afterwards? Do you remember?
That was probably after. Dipena was a notable young guy that we attracted for a while. We often had problems keeping younger people, two-body problems. So occasionally there are cases where we solve them, but often solutions were not satisfactory to one or more of the partners, and that's life.
Yeah.
And I also remember Beresticki also said that he visited the MRC. Right?
Yeah. Beresticki, many of Bracy students, so
Coron also visited, great. Yeah, so it was a great attraction point.
Yeah. So I would say, it's probably fair to say most anybody who was somebody in PDE visited at some point.
So I was kind of curious about the mandate of the MRC. So I do know now that when I apply for grants, I'm really thinking about what I'm interested, and some of it has applications as well. But I think mathematicians, they like to do the math that they want to do, and if they can fit it into something that gets them a grant, then that's extra good. And so I'm wondering if the MRC, how people thought about what they're doing. How close, was there some? I thought I read somewhere that they're supposed to spend a certain amount of time on I guess Army stuff, and some amount of time on whatever.
Yeah. So some of the people, in particular the permanent staff there, were occasionally asked to consult at Army institutions.
Mm-hmm.
It was not so much the case in PDE as far as I know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Mike Crandall maybe once or twice may have gone, but I don't think he went on such trips very often, rarely. It might have been much more so something like statistics.
Okay.
Or comp sci.
Mm-hmm.
You could ask Carl de Boer about that sort of thing.
Yeah. So in terms of like you came in '69, right? So in the '70s, '80s, there were a lot of activities. But in terms of the core member of the PD group, let's say there were you, Crandall, Dipana a bit. I checked. There was also Renati was here, right?
Turner.
Turner was here.
Yeah.
And,
Michael Renardi, yeah, that was, he had been a student of Klaus Kirschgessner, who had visited MRC before I came, actually. And Renardi was another case in point where a two-body problem interfered.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he met his future wife at MRC.
Oh, okay. So, how would you characterize the sort of PD group during the 1780s? Because clearly, it's like it's different from Minnesota School, right? I mean, like how would you, like.
Well, it was not a big group, but it was supplemented by the visitors to MRC. So I think it was a strong group. Minnesota always had a much larger group than we did. There was a time before I came when there were even some regular meetings between the two departments. I'm not sure if it was the whole department or subsets thereof, but they would meet maybe somewhere in between.
Oh, interesting.
Once a year. So I know it existed, but it had basically disappeared by the time I
see.
began.
I see. Right. Yeah. Related to those meetings, I think at some point we should talk at some point about Midwest PD seminar. But first, I want to go back to Hung's questioning about who was around in the 70s and 80s, and maybe we should talk about Mike Crandall a little bit. Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about Mike Crandall? Okay, he's my
who you know
academic
about, who I know,
grandfather, so of course,
Well, Mike was a very dynamic person, very good expositor. He attracted some really first-rate students and grad students. And had broad interests. We worked together for several years, and he had strong opinions about things, which often didn't make him many friends, but so he was a crucial member of the department.
But had you met before coming here? You'd met in California?
Yes, Mike and I were both junior faculty at Stanford, and we're certainly good friends there. I think we did some work together there, and there also was Amnon Pazzi,
Okay.
who spent made a couple of longer visits here. I think he was maybe a Van Blankers. I don't know if he spent a longer period here various times. Yeah. So he was certainly the leader of the group in some ways.
So, for example, you really maybe because of your style, right? You are working a lot in nonlinear analysis PDE, and you work also a lot in the intersection between PDE and dynamical system, right? Is it because you know? I mean, what was the motivation for you to do that? And also, because Dallas and I also chat a bit. You know, like Minnesota school is really into regularity theory, right? So Wisconsin, you know.
Well, regularity theory was a major subject of research in those years, in say the 60s, 70s, and Minnesota probably was the U.S. center in that subject. So you had several people working on that. Madison didn't. It's a very technical subject, and Madison never had any. Well, for a little while, Emmanuel Di Benedetto was here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Another two-body problem.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. I see. How about any interaction of us, you know, with Chicago, UIUC, Purdue, I mean, like other places, you know, Michigan?
Well, there were certainly contacts between the places. I mean, in the end, the Midwest PD seminar evolved, which involved multiple places.
But do you remember who had the idea for that? Who made it happen?
There were several people involved. I don't remember the precise dynamics, but in Chicago there was Felix Browder. In Northwestern there was Avner Friedman. In Minnesota, multiple people.
Yeah.
Here, myself, Crandall, and Turner. The original proposal was to alternate meetings between various places, and in the old days, Madison was a regular such visiting point. Minnesota rarely, because that was farther from the center of gravity.
Yeah.
But it continues to this day.
Yeah, I did. So I read that the first one was 1977 at Northwestern, and the second one was here.
Yeah.
And on the website it says there's a thanks to Paul Rabinowitz, and I because they have scans of the programs. You must have sent. You sent that.
Well, Jeff Lewis decided at some point to try to collect the programs, and they had a collection of some of them, and there were certain missing years, and I was able to provide some of the missing years.
I see.
So,
which is great. I had just saw this last night. Oh wow, they have the program.
I need to break a news to you that it was discontinued.
was discontinued?
Just 2 or 3 years ago. I think because of NSF funding.
Yeah.
But it's something that I want to revive.
I think that
we should. Yeah. We should. Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw that. So I looked at the program for the first one. I saw you spoke.
Yes.
And with Jim Sarin, Hans Weinberger, I think Chaim Brazis as well, and maybe Avner Friedman.
Well, the strategy was always most of the speakers would come from the Midwest, and in the early years it was senior people, and then there was more the younger people. but there was always an attempt to get some people from outside of the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
So Lars Hormander spoke, Louis Nierberg, Jürgen Moser, etc., etc.
I was wondering whether, with sort of with the waning of the MRC, whether the Midwest PD seminar and maybe also the IMA at Minnesota were kind of evolved to fill in a little bit of the gap. Or maybe it was not really related. But.
Maybe in part. I think the NSF felt pressure to distribute these institutes geographically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was the goal. I mean, we did apply earlier for such an institute, but we didn't get it.
Yeah.
Did we have a big hit after the MRC was closed down in terms of activities for PDEs and all this sort of lively, discussions and everything? In your opinion?
Well, it somewhat lessened the amount of visitors we might have in certain areas just because of the funds available for that purpose. There was an interim period when there was a milder version of the MRC, was the Center for the Mathematical Sciences.
Mm-hmm.
Marshall Slemrod was the last head.
I see.
And they had a presence on campus near the Union.
Mm-hmm.
So it lasted for a while and then sort of disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
There had been changes in the department too, in that the earlier leadership in applied math retired, whatever, and then there was newer people with different interests, broader interests, and that changed. Applied math grew after that substantially.
So I'm going to ask you a personal question before we move on. Like, you have been here for your entire career, right? Have you ever at some point considered moving?
Yes. There was a point when Crandall and I were approached by Duke, for example. We considered it. Well, in the end, Mike did leave. He went to Santa Barbara. But there were a couple of occasions when I thought about it, but I was comfortable here, and I remained.
I mean, at least Craig Evans told me that Crandall is always a little bit of a person believe in spiritual, in the spirits. That's why he wanted to get back to California. I mean, that's what Craig Evans told me. I'm not sure whether it's,
Well, he had come here from California. He had mainly grown up in California.
Mm-hmm.
His wife was also from California. So when he had the opportunity, he opted to go back.
I see. Okay. And after the 70s, 80s, and there is a new flow of also amazing faculty in the PD group, right? Like Anganan, Sigurd Anganan, Take Suganidis, and then Misha Feldman, Sergei Bolotin, right? Did you see the dynamic change from the 70s, 80s to then, the 90s, 2000s?
Well, there are different people, different interests. After Mike left, my friend left, there was no the leadership was not as dynamic as it had been, and we just evolved somehow. We had good fortune in, say, getting Sigurd and Misha, and et cetera, et cetera.
Takis also has a strong voice, right?
Yeah, well, Takis, Takis made a difference, but another two-body situation.
Yeah. So it's clear that the PD caucus has never been big, right? I mean, I think that at this moment we have 6. Has it ever been bigger than 6 during your?
No, I think it's maybe as big as it's ever been.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shouldn't say it too loud. Have to hire more PDEs.
Oh, sure.
Well,
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
But many fields which historically were big have diminished or disappeared here. So I don't know what the current situation is, but a traditional area was logic. That was usually, we would have the biggest logic group around, more or less. And I suspect that's probably much smaller now.
Yeah, we only have 3 now. In the
Yeah.
logic group. Yeah.
But one thing that, of course, we can count people in the PDE group, but then there's, at least here now, what's nice is that there's good sort of, there are people who really belong to 2 groups, like Haoshen, is in the probability group, but he does stochastic PDEs, and of course Sergei Denisov is analysis. He works on PDEs sometimes, and also Laura Lowe, my wife, is in applied math, but proves PDE theorems. And I like that we have. Then I also think about some applied math, and Cole Graham, our newest PDE hire. Who cited you in his job talk. He also does probability. I think it's great that we have this cross.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's there has been pressure over the years to have more of such interactions, both within, say, the subject and also with external areas too. But it's a good thing. It's a good reason to have to hire more mathematicians.
Yeah.
Because also like Slambroid and Zavaras, right? I mean, they were in applied math group, right? But they also did a lot of PDEs.
Yeah, well, we used to have, at one point, we had a joint applied math PDE seminar.
Right. Yeah.
So, Sergei Boltin was, by training, a dynamical systems guy, but he had strong interests in applied math.
Right. Yeah, I was told that we have the the PD and geometric analysis seminar was created by Sigurd and Susan Chet. But earlier, our seminar was joined with the applied math seminar.
Yeah, well, Sigurd was a good case in point. He's at the intersection of PDE and geometrical analysis and many other things too.
Right.
People change, the fields change, etc.
Yeah.
Sigurd told me that I can't remember if it was you or Steve Wanger, but up until maybe 10 years ago, someone was calling him the new guy.
Steve
It might have been
Wanger.
Steve.
Steve Wanger. I think I'm running into Steve, and he's still calling me a new guy now, so it's fair. You know? Yeah. It's
It sounds like Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have talked about fields changing and have sort of evolved into certain things. I mean, in a sort of broader perspective, do you think that as us mathematicians working in the field, we are driving it, or like outer forces driving it, or
Mixture.
Yeah.
Mixture. It depends on all sorts of things. Successes, serendipity, external forces.
Yes, something when we were leading up to this, I was reading an interview you did with Typing Leo, and someone else whose name I forget. Sorry.
I was typing you.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, and anyways, in Taiwan, and in that interview, you talked a little bit about a kind of symbiotic relationship between, in between applications and developing theory. That you have some application you want to solve, and then you develop a theory which encompasses some class of problems, and this leads you to, to discover new problems. I was wondering if you could comment on that, or if you have any examples that you can think of in your own work.
Well, that's at least in part the way I function myself.
Mm-hmm.
So you may come across a particular problem. So in my case, say there were bifurcation problems, and you manage to solve it, and then that solution may get you to think about the theory a little bit, and that may lead you to work on that, and that may lead to, say, the global bifurcation theorem,
Mm-hmm.
or also with the mound pass theorem. Ambrosetti and I were independently working on various kinds of nonlinear eigenvalue problems, and I went on leave and spent 3 months in Pisa, and by chance I shared an office with him.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is history in some sense. We even originally there was a little bit of a language problem, and our common language was German.
Oh,
Okay. So it started out in German.
interesting.
But Paul, what's your second best language after English? I'm assuming English is your best.
English is my only good language. I guess in terms of my command of it, I know some German, which I almost never use, and I know some Danish.
Mm.
Those would be my second and third.
Okay. So despite the French visitors here, not as much French.
French is funny. When I was a graduate student at NYU, you had to show proficiency in 2 languages to get a PhD. And my first, I studied German as an undergrad there, and I needed a second, and so I started to take a course in French.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the teacher so pedantic that I couldn't take it.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied myself, and I failed. But then I tried again, and I studied more seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I only had studied 2 weeks the first time.
I see.
It wasn't enough.
I see.
But the second time I studied more industriously, and I passed.
Okay.
So, but I never learned French, therefore. I mean, I knew some vocabulary, but I didn't learn how to speak it.
Sure. Just quickly about that. So, was it a little bit of a shock to you to fail? I mean, I think all of us. I've definitely had instances where I didn't prepare enough, and I thought, and it really stuck with me. I remember once I gave a really bad practice talk to my advisor.
Well, I use that as motivation to really work harder the next time around.
Yeah, I did fail many times, and
It's good to do something.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah. Especially early on. Then you take it seriously.
Yeah.
So I mean, because we were talking about sort of how you found problems and what your thoughts about math, and it just recall in my mind that there was an article in the AMS talking about sort of birds and frogs in sort of the culture of doing research in mathematics, where birds sort of flying and see the landscape and creating theories, and frogs as sort of problem solver. Do you agree with such sort of assessment? And
Well, there certainly are people of each type and people of both types. So I guess flying frogs.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, this is great. I like that.
But Hung, do you see yourself in homogenization? Actually, has a sort of theory. Do you know? And you're big. Anyways, established in that.
I mean, I sometimes we try to see the landscape and trying to see a little bit, right? But at the end of the day, that like what Paul said, we need to sit down and solve problems. So to go further, I don't know, right? Because we just try to see and then solve something. But I mean, like for Paul, I think that he has a better assessment than maybe 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
You should do what's fun.
Yeah.
If it's not fun, it'll be painful.
Yeah.
I agree.
So you wanted to ask about. I remember you mentioned you wanted to ask about students.
Yes. That's important.
Do you want to do that now or come back to
No.
it? Yeah. I said you wanted to ask about it.
Yes. So I think that grad students, right? That's an important part of UW-Madison, because we are not talking about the general grad students at UW-Madison math, but can you tell us about the grad student in PDEs during your 4 decades, and certain observations that you have seen?
Well, to put things in perspective, you have countries like France or Italy where you have nationwide universities, national grand écoles, and we have wonderful students. In Madison, it's much more mixed. You get some students who are very good, and many more students are pretty good. And so we occasionally have major successes, but we get lots of solid people. And so one has to be happy when you get particularly good students. And we've had several. So Mike Crandall had a couple of very good students. Charlie Conley had some excellent students. Some of your teachers in Minnesota.
Right, those
probably.
are the ones I'm familiar with. Dick McGeehee and Rick Moku, who I never had with for anything. But yeah.
How about your students?
So my students, I think my most successful students have been from other countries. So you may know Yiming Long, who became a member of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, which is much harder than becoming a member of the U.S. National Academy. Patricio Felmer. They've probably been my most successful students, but there are others who have done very well. Some students, some of those, in the U.S. there are good periods for students and bad periods. I'm not sure how it is these days, but a couple of my students went out in the world in the bad periods, and they opted to go into other areas.
I see. So when you're talking about bad periods, do you mean sort of broader the academic job market, or do you mean bad in terms of, I don't know, something else?
Well, the job market.
Okay.
Opportunities. So I had, one very good student who was had a junior position in Minnesota, and he didn't like it. He felt they didn't take teaching seriously enough. He liked to teach. He left there and went to a small college on the West Coast, and then he discovered that he enjoyed it, but it didn't pay so well. And he had 2 kids, and he became an actuary. And so it happens.
Yeah.
Not everybody has to be a researcher.
Right.
Yeah, because later in life there are a lot of constraints, like what you say, right, with families and lots of other reasonings coming into the So you're saying that, all these oscillations will really affect all the students, right? I mean, we're also seeing it now this year, for example, postdoc market seems very hard. Tenure track. Okay.
How many applications do we get this year?
I mean, we have math jobs, so every year on the order of magnitude, we have more than 1,000 applications for both tenure track and postdoc positions. So,
And for PhD, we had 900 last year. And this year,
PhD
similar.
900. This year is 825, and it's double compared to 4 or 5 years ago, and we have less number of positions. So it's fierce this year.
Right.
It's on all fronts.
But
So-
part of it's also that the application systems are more centralized, and so
Yeah.
it's easier to hit apply.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But definitely lots of applicants.
Yeah.
Oh, related to students, one thing I've noticed as a relatively new professor is that I can't tell how people are going to do, and that's and also some people in my graduate student cohort, the people at the beginning when we thought they're the strongest, maybe in the end decided to do something else, or didn't enjoy the research, or the problem didn't work out. Or some people get really excited once they start researching. Is that something that you've noticed when with in your time here?
Well, just looking broadly, there are people who are really smart and they're interested in everything, and it takes a while before they really focus on a single subject, say, and then they're very successful. And there are lots of people who are smart and do okay, but as you indicated, they maybe never fulfill the promise.
Yeah.
The promise that you see in them. So it's a mixture. Sometimes it's a matter of luck too. You just hit on something that's right for you.
Do you feel you're lucky in some of your own in your early progress?
Serendipity never hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so I was together with Mike Crandall at the same time.
Yeah.
That was very helpful.
And sharing the office with Ambrosetti.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things that change, right? Because in the past, you need to be in the same room or kind of meet people. And gradually now, I think Dallas, I have Zoom meetings every week with people all over the world. There's still a sense that if we were in the same room together, it would be better. because on Zoom it's very hard to explain your intuition and everything. But I think I see that there are a lot of changes, but I also cannot predict what's going to happen. And
Well, also the use of the computer and now AI. It's early days for AI in math.
Right.
yeah.
Right. Is that something on your mind? AI and the kind of ChatGPT sort of.
Interesting to see how that develops in math. So I'm a little bit skeptical, but you got this resource next to you that has an enormous memory. It can, well, in a sense, it restricts you to what's known. So it can connect 2 points, but maybe it's not a good 2 points.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's related to this about the development of technology and how we do math. I have a kind of theory, but not really well thought out, that the way that we record the math, either by handwriting or typewriter or directly into LaTeX, affects how we choose to write, and maybe even a little bit the math that we do. In that, when you're handwriting an article, you may have to choose. You can't just write so many words. You have to choose your words carefully. And when you're typing, you can just copy. Go very quickly, copy and paste.
Well, that's funny. I had just the opposite feeling about writing or typing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I started out in the day when you just did things on paper, and I wouldn't mind running a draft and then 5 minutes later starting a new draft, whatever. Whereas when I'm doing something on the computer, I don't like to have to do it multiple times.
I see. You mean because it's sort of a lot of work to write every integral?
So I'm not proficient in typing.
Okay.
That's probably part of it.
Okay.
I still like to write things.
Me too. But I do see the changes in the new generations, because students or also I have seen that also from our postdocs and others, that they really like to write on iPad or write. When teaching, they're also not writing on the board; they're writing on the iPad and project it. So there are big changes, I think, that because the way we think, the way we do is wired into what you said. But I also prefer writing on the paper and checking things first.
Well, also giving talks. I almost never give a non-chalk talk.
Right. I did all the chalk talks earlier. Then after the pandemic, kind of like visiting places, and sometimes that they are not prepared for me to do the chalk talks. So
I've noticed that too. Yeah. I went to give some a mini course at a school for math. And they didn't have a board, so I thought that was on. But
so things are changing
Yeah.
quite fast,
Yeah.
So I want to ask you a little bit. This is kind of Wisconsin, but a little bit about all this sort of, because the teaching load and everything earlier was 2-2, right? And then all this committee work, before the age of computer, the age of internet, and after this, because do you see, teaching 2-2 was hard, right? And I don't know, or I mean, doing committee work, was it a lot of commitments in all of these combinations?
These things are all relative.
Okay.
Go back earlier. When Fritz John came to the United States, I think he went to Kentucky. His teaching load was 5 courses a semester.
Wow.
So, and then he had some promising student or students, and he gave some extra lectures to that student. So we're spoiled.
Yeah.
On the other hand, there weren't the same sort of distractions there, and administration will always fill up all available spare time.
Yes, that's what I feel, because with all this new technology, emails and everything, the amount of paperwork and other things are piling up. Yeah.
I would always notice the difference between summer and then the semester starts and you're a week into the semester, and your use of time has totally changed.
Yeah.
So since we're on the subject of teaching, I remember I was asking Sigurd, have we always had, I'm teaching a 290 person class right now, and I asked Sigurd, have we always had such large classes? And he said ever since he can remember. And okay, but what about ever since you can remember? Have we always had large classes?
I think so. I mean, if you look at the size of the largest classrooms, it tells you what went on. The economics has changed things a lot, and Wisconsin was always slower to change things than many other places. So now there's some classes that are even bigger than 300.
That's right.
They have to move outside of Van Vleck.
Right. Right.
So now the current teaching load is less than 2.2, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's currently
plus
1.1.
epsilon. Plus
Yeah,
epsilon.
1 plus epsilon.
Yeah. So it was not that the case when I taught.
Right. So, I mean, as a whole, as you said, you have seen that the department is evolving and changing a lot, right? And do you think, as a member of the National Academy of Science, right? I mean, what's the importance of mathematics or overall, in this new age of things, right?
Well, there's been a consistent uptick in the amount of math required by other departments, and that in recent years has driven the growth of the math department. I don't remember who it was Biddy Martin or after her, who among the chancellors who decided that the size of the department should more closely reflect the number of students they taught. So for many years, well, back in the 60s, there was enormous numbers of students. So math, I think, had order of magnitude 300, 350. The government was supporting things strongly in those days. The economy was good. And math reached a local max in size, and maybe global max in size. And then it started to shrink. I remember there was even a tough dean named Claney who told math that they're going to have to shrink. Tricky situation for the administration. I mean, when you're in a period of financial constraints and you have two departments who have people retiring. One is a department which is pretty sizable, and another is a small department of 5 people. So are you going to let 20% of that department disappear without replacement? We'll take it from the big guys. They're not going to notice the difference. But after you do that 10, how many times, it's felt. And when I think it was Xi Jin who was chair, maybe a point was reached at which the department couldn't really function anymore under those. And then the curve turned. There were chancellors who were more willing to change the rules of the game, and now it's more of an upswing or at worst a leveling.
Yeah, it's leveling.
So the future looks good for math in the sense there's going to be a demand by students to take the courses, and math modeling or whatever is used in more and more areas.
Yeah, so I don't have too much more to add. I do actually, since you mentioned chair, and also so you're obviously very attuned to these kind of issues and the global picture, these fluctuations and things, and the needs of the department. But you were never chair, right? Or
Yes.
He's smiling.
Some people manage to avoid it. I know my limitations. No, I even had a generous friend who had been chair who offered to be the associate chair if I ran, but I decided I didn't want that.
But I assume you had some other tasks, like were you ever director of graduate studies or things of that nature?
No, I certainly did my share of committee stuff. I was always willing to do that.
Okay.
Maybe because we are doing sort of like gentle and random chats, right? So I think in my mind, maybe there's one final point I want to ask you, and this is a deep point I want to ask you about. You have been sort of like publishing and doing a lot of important works, and also you have been in the editorial boards of many important journals, right?
Yeah, I've done a fair amount.
Right.
Almost none now, but still a little bit.
Yeah. So how did that job evolve? And I mean, did you see some changes in those times?
Well, the editorial end, I think the biggest changes have been technological. It used to be, if you were on an editorial board, okay, there was some mechanism by which papers were sent to you, and you handled it, and then when it was finished, you sent the information to the managing editor or whatever. Now it's the use of these, quote, editorial managers by the journals, which I do my best to avoid as much as possible.
So was it centralized or decentralized in the earlier time?
It was more decentralized, I would say. Is that you ran your own show.
Okay.
And
which one is better in your opinion?
I don't know. I guess it depends. Maybe it depends on how you grew up. If you're used to something initially, you get comfortable with it. Certainly the most freedom was if you run your own show. But maybe people like it if they just get the paper sent to them, they do something.
But I assume that you've seen just a huge increase in the amount of papers that one must take care of.
Yeah, there are more mathematicians, especially there are more countries that, say, 20 years ago or whatever, would send their students to the U.S. to be trained. Now they're doing their own training. They have many more departments. They have many more people doing research. So the numbers have grown immensely.
So, but I suppose also given the influx of papers, I assume that there's I think in math now we have there's more specialization because so much math, even PDEs, exists, and I assume in the old days when you were an editor, you would need to be attuned to a much broader spectrum of. You might receive papers that aren't so closely in your area.
Yeah. Well, then you might just say you should go to X or
X is
Y. But when fields grow more mature, I remember being on a committee, an AMS committee, that was deciding on topics for maybe the CBMS lectures, and there were a collection of proposals. And I remember one of of course, there were proposals coming in from areas that only a couple of members of the committee may know something about. I remember one member making some very critical remarks about the kind of proposal that he had been looking at, and he said that, this field is a very mature field, and the kind of questions people are looking at now are a little bizarre. He couldn't see supporting that kind of thing. So fields get mature, and then maybe the questions become more artificial, less interesting. So that, by the same token, that's one reason why PDE keeps expanding. There's more and more good sources of problems that are ripe now.
Right. That's great. So I mean, just to follow up, I think that just one more question on this is that, as you said, right? I mean, PD is broadening, and like that I said, things are getting more and more technical and more specialized. Papers are getting longer.
Yes, much longer.
Yeah. So I mean,
that means that you got to expect more time from the referees, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So, do you see, like, that is as a plus or what? Because I mean, it's great, right? But there's always some times that I have a little bit worried that things are just, getting too big.
Yeah. Well, again, problems can be attacked now, which are more technical and take more pages. So if you want something shorter, maybe you got to look in a new area, something where they haven't done the simpler things yet.
So it's just a natural course of things.
Yeah, it's a natural course.
Okay. But so related to areas maturing, and coming back to Tariq, so would you say that what you might call nonlinear analysis is fairly mature?
The actual analysis itself, well, in some sense, yes, it's fairly mature, but there's still, so there are different sides of that, of nonlinear analysis. It used to be called nonlinear functional analysis, and then the term broadened to nonlinear analysis. So there are computational sides, there are combinatorial sides, there are algebraic sides, there are analytical sides. One area where there's maybe much more room is topological. So probably, there's more computational topology these days. But it's pretty mature, but there's certainly room for more.
Related to the topological aspect, one thing I've noticed just among my peers, the people in my sub area, is that it's kind of topological methods, a sort of something that which could give you a global theorem, okay, maybe it doesn't tell you how many solutions there are, maybe, but at least it tells you there's a branch going forever. They're not. Maybe, I don't feel they're as well known now. I know a little bit of it because because there's a lot of study of the structure of steady states in Navier-Stokes and things like that. I remember talking to Tarek, and he's saying, I have these old notes from Professor Rabinowitz, and we should really study these and internalize them. Otherwise, that kind of area, which is actually well developed, gets lost a little bit. Do you have you noticed that those kind of topological ideas are not as in vogue now, or not as well known?
I guess I don't know what exactly is taught these days. When it comes to problems in the analysis end of nonlinear analysis, there's the contracting mapping theorem,
right?
Or the implicit function theorem, which is smooth cousin, and that's how those are the tools for local problems,
right.
Or special situations with maybe special methods. And if you start looking for global methods, there's degree theory, and there's variational methods, and some other special tools. There's not a lot. So you do see them used. I don't know. It would be good to ask somebody like Henri Veresticky, who's more active and in working in biological directions in particular. About that.
Yeah, but I agree. There's still a lot of room for global results.
Well, I've never actually used the full degree theory in any of my papers. I've sometimes used I don't forget the name. It was a kind of a softer version. Maybe it's called Schaefer fixed point or something.
Yeah, there are variants of the Schauder fixed point theorem.
Yes.
That's one.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know a little bit about that stuff, and from the point of view of analysis, it's always going to be crucial to get those a priori bounds.
Yeah, absolutely. A priori estimate. Yeah. So I mean, so maybe a final point I want to ask you now is that if there is a young student, I know that there are students who ask you this, like if they come and ask you, like if they want to be major in mathematics for undergrad, or if they just started grad school, and I mean they want to, because lots of changes now, right? So if they want to look at the total landscape and go forward, what would be your advice to them?
What particular areas in math to work on, or?
Yeah, or let's say let's start with undergrad first, right? I mean, if they come and they say, "Hey, I love math. I want to be a math major," then
get as broad a background as you can. In science, the action is a lot of action in biological directions. So I don't know. It used to be the case that 1 out of every 4 students who came to the university wanted to work in the biological sciences.
Oh, that's.
I don't know if it's still the case.
It's still big.
Yeah, it seems so. Yeah.
But AI is
another thing. Yeah.
is a big area now. That's where huge sums are being thrown at it, much of which will be replaced it, but
Did you go in the new building, the new computer science building yet?
no.
See this, yeah.
It's, yeah.
You can come
It's
in and have a
interesting,
look. It's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
How about, let's say, okay, let's maybe be more specific about, let's say a student coming to UW and want to do PDE, what would be your advice to them?
That's fine. Learn tools where they're you're more likely to see growth, like stochastics, probability. Those are probably good areas to think about. Look at interesting biological applications. Yeah. There's plenty of room for stuff.
Well, I maybe do you want to save the rest for another time?
Yeah, I think that we today is great. We have been touching on various important points, and I think that we should save the rest for the next time.
Well, you should maybe try to catch by telephone Bob Turner,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because he's been here longer than me, and he's older than me.
Yeah.
So, or in the comp sci direction, Carl de Boer. Or Carl's student, former student, what's his name? Who's worked with him?
I don't know, but at least when I was a grad student in Berkeley, I was in a course called Numerical Functional Analysis taught by Olga Holmes, and she used Calder-Boer lecture notes.
Oh, okay.
That was cool. Yeah,
She was a student here.
yeah, she was a student here. Yeah. So.
All right. She took PDE too, I think.
Oh, she took PD. Oh, great. That's great. Yeah, so I really enjoyed her class when I first came. So thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
So do we clap?
No.
You should talk to Sigurd.
Oh, sure.